Welcome, welcome, welcome. We are back for another episode of The Lock-In. We have a very special guest this week, a man who has been on our show 4 times. There are not many people who've been on more than that. In fact, only 4 people have been on more than 4 times. Tom Hall, Jabracada, take a bow.
I've been on 4 times.
Yeah, you've been on the proper show.
I thought I'd been on twice. You know, it's crazy how
a lot of people.
Does the strategy segment count as one as well? Like, oh yeah, I suppose it's just like instant deletion, isn't it? And then that's you know, the Feraldos of the world, where
depends on how much trouble we got you into.
Yeah, well, you know, trouble is all relative, but you definitely made me feel like shit one morning. I tell you that. One morning I woke up to a real pile of, you know, but what can you do? You know, the game is the game.
Well, I do want to start by saying that I am interested to know how your year has been going, because I did have a quick look at your Hendon mob, because I know people are like accumulating all these no specific territory flags, and obviously you've been grinding away some of those landmark events online. But your last, or it wasn't your last, but your second last, you did finish the year very well last year, 2019, the GUKPT main event. You managed to final table 5th place. So you're probably looking at 2020 thinking, okay, I fancy a bit of live poker here. So how are you feeling about your current state?
Yeah, I miss live poker. I miss the adrenaline. I miss waking up for like day 3 and feeling like anticipation. Online, you go on a 5-minute break. There isn't really, I don't really feel that anticipation as much anymore. It's just, it is what it is. And with live poker, you can't really replace that feeling of going to bed, like anticipating the next day. That's a totally different world. And then the adrenaline face-to-face poker. I definitely miss that. It's a blessing and a curse for me, I would say, this year. I've got to study a lot. I think I've improved a lot. Financially, I don't think I've been doing like incredibly well online, doing fine, but I think I've improved a lot, and that's much more important. However, you know, how is the state of poker going to look in 12 months' time? Who knows, really, as well, because the environment's changed a little bit already since Corona.
Yeah, it's a really interesting point. Dara, I want to turn to you just to talk on that sort of notion of a pause. Like, we've all been given a sort of a pause in our lives to maybe reflect on what we're doing, maybe in terms of our careers. We all have to play online if we're going to keep playing poker, but maybe a lot of people have decided to study more, maybe plan for the future a bit more. We actually did an interview just a couple of days ago, which will actually be on a much future show. I think it will go into the finale of the main show. But we spoke to Marty Mathis, and he talked about sort of seizing this opportunity to do more deep study. Are you thinking along the same way?
Yeah, I mean, I guess you have to occupy your time somehow, and what I've done essentially is what a lot of people did. I do all the stuff that I normally do at home, and I've always had this view throughout my career, at least for the last 10 years or so, that I enjoy all the stuff I do at home, and the traveling for live poker is kind of a necessary evil. Now that I'm actually forced to stay at home all the time, I realize that that's not fully true. I do actually miss live poker quite a bit. Not just the live poker, but also the whole social scene around it, meeting people like Tom and so on. But yeah, I've been doing a lot of coaching, been working on the next book, and I've also done more study than I have in recent time. And similar to Tom, I feel my game has improved more in this period than at any time in the last few years. But I also feel that kind of online is getting more difficult as a result. Like, everybody's improving, everybody's at home,
exactly.
Everybody
Yeah.
is studying. So I feel, and even the recreationals. I mean, I coach some recreationals, and they've come on leaps and bounds in this period because it's the first time they've ever really sort of seriously studied for a sustained period. So. Yeah, similar to Tom, I would worry about the long-term effects, and I would echo that. Even though I've studied a lot and I think I've improved, I'm not doing financially incredibly compared to previous years. It's always a matter of your relative edge over the field, and I feel like everything is coming closer together. The other thing that's happened, I think, is live and online have almost kind of merged into one now, where all the live series have been moved to online, and they've always been very different ecosystems. Live is something you do essentially a series of shots. Maybe you grind small side events as well, and you play satellites to keep your variance down. But it is very, very high variance. And then online was just where you sort of ground out your steady profit. Now, what's happened online is it's become dominated more and more in the last few months by these big series, and the smaller daily games have actually suffered as a result.
Well, you talked there about how the game is sort of all coming closer together, and I suppose the first story I want to pick up on, and it is to sort of pick up on it from the last episode we had, because we spoke about the RTA scandal in unspecific terms at that point. We were aware of the allegations against Fedor Kruse, but they weren't generally public, and we didn't want to sort of step all over that. So we sort of talked about it in a much more general sense. We can talk about the details of it now. And I guess, Tom, when I come to you on this one, I'm really interested to get your take, and also, in to whatever degree it follows up on what Dara just said there. I am going to speak again to my notes here, just because whenever we talk about these types of things, I want to get my language spot on. Kruse's flatmates, Manuel and Nicholas, have apparently provided PokerStars and GG with photographs and screenshots. Included in this is a photograph allegedly of Kruse's setup. It shows 3 machines clustered together, 2 have active game windows open, and a third is clearly using a poker solver. It is alleged Kruse used some specific hardware to circumvent the mouse tracking software designed to pick up this sort of activity. That's one of the ways in which sites are able to detect any of these shenanigans. Now, obviously, he's found a workaround. Allegedly, I'm going to say allegedly, I think here, just for my own safety. The flatmates are also in possession of a screenshot of a potentially damaging WhatsApp remark from Kruse, where perhaps he's sort of acknowledged what's going on. What do you make of this, Tom? I guess, like, I looked at Ben CB's stream a week ago, and he sort of called out Bonomo for potentially using an RTA because he took 45 seconds over a decision where it was unusual that Bonomo had this specific hand that was a call in an unusual spot. And then this week I was on the Orbit with Berkey, and Berkey said that there were rumblings that players have been using these machines for years and years. And in reality, some of the guys we think are the greatest, the guys we think are beasts, have actually just been early adapters to this type of technology. And I suppose that's just really scary.
I want to go backwards for a sec and talk about the studying. It's like everyone's busy all the time. And when we do study, it's like 90 minutes, 2 hours. And we're looking at hands in isolation. We're learning from our mistakes. But the real studying work comes in when you do hundreds and hundreds of sims, and then you start looking for the trends and how to adjust to certain things. And I think a lot of people are getting a lot better in this time because they've actually been given this free time for the first time, or they've been pushed to the point of so much grinding that they want to step away from actually playing and just actually they've set a week aside for themselves to actually go really hard at the solver. And so I think that's why people are getting better really fast, because they've actually been given this free time. Now, the whole RTA situation, like, firstly, Fedor's got 3 computers in the photos, right? So do we know if he's using actual RTA? Who knows? Is there a software that's controlling his mouse and clicking on the fold button? I don't think that's the case. I think it's a separate computer that he inputs into whatever the solver or whatever software he's using, that the actions in the hand that are going on, and then is finding results according to this. He doesn't need to refer to this every time. He's probably got many, many charts for a lot of the pre-flop stuff, but I doubt it's a pure RTA in the terms, because a pure RTA is effectively a bot, right? That's what it is. And an RTA it's a tool that tells you what to click. It turns you into a bot, effectively. Now, was Fedor acting completely as a bot? No, not really, because he was still doing a lot of non-GTO stuff. So it means he was referring to the tool for a lot of tougher decisions, which is obviously still not allowed. But the lines get very blurry, I feel. and it's hard for us to know exactly how far was he crossing the line. Crossing the line at all is obviously, you've got that red mark on you forever. But did he go fully into the actual RTA? I don't know. I feel like the situation is he had a very good library first. From the messages I read, someone was building him a library. Someone was running many, many, many sims for him. For a price, who knows, whatever. Maybe they're doing it as a group. Maybe it started off as them running a lot of high frequency data sims. That's badly phrased. Maybe it started off as a plan for them to run a lot of sims over a short period of time and try and extract the data, and then ended up in many, many spreadsheets with charts of how to play loads of spots for 100 big blinds exactly. And then when it comes to a complicated river spot, he might input into his solver or whatever he's using, here are the actions for this 100 big blind pot. What should I do on the river? So I don't know exactly what's going on in that regard. According to the messages, he literally used the words dream machine. And that's where it gets really bad for him, in my mind, because he's very clearly said he's using something to assist his decisions, not just a chart, some sort of assistance. Dream machine doesn't say doesn't suggest a library of data. It suggests a program that is assisting you. So that's pretty clear evidence, I would say, for that.
Yeah, turning to you, Dara, like your description of a dream machine when we spoke about it out of context last time around was pretty much this. I think Tom has sort of elaborated on maybe the details of how you would use it and what types of spots, but you pretty much set out the parameters as Tom has there as well, where I suppose you end up with a push a button bot type of situation, which is where obviously a very clear line is crossed. Tom is sort of revealing some ambiguity there, some sort of obviously if we're all using our charts, that's fine. Like, people are using their charts, they worked out their charts from inference. Maybe if they go back all the way to yourself there, that was like one of the ways in which you studied a long time ago. This is a much more sophisticated version of that, but I suppose the question then becomes, at what point on that learning curve, or on what point on that developmental curve, is it now just suddenly cheating, or does it happen like that?
Yeah, I mean, as Tom said, it is a spectrum, and it's very hard to know where the line is. And a lot of the recreations that I've spoke to who are sort of up in arms about this, saying this is cheating and this is disgraceful. I know for a fact they use charts and they use snapshot when they're playing. Now, technically, if you talk to the sites, that is real-time assistance, so they are cheating as well. I mean, the hard line is you're literally not supposed to have anything. You're not even supposed to have a chart. When you're faced with a decision, you use your own brain. All the work you've done away from the table is supposed to be stored in there, and you can't refer back to anything to see what, in inverted commas, the correct answer is. But I mean, that's impossible to enforce. And I mean, I would say the number of players who don't use some sort of chart or something is fairly small. Now, the next stage up is, as Tom said, you can have run lots and lots of sims, and we're on that spot now. The computer behind me, which you can't see, is basically the computer that I have running sims, and that runs sims more or less 24/7. Now, that's behind me. I could technically refer to it in the middle of the game, but I'm not well organized enough to have anything like that. So I basically use that as a study, just to look at all the spots I want to look at. And then when I'm playing so many tables, I don't have time to be messing around on other machines. With Kruse, the assertion is, at the very least, he had sort of a major bank of sims, which would dwarf my tiny little database, so that he could look at a lot of very, very tricky high equity spots. But there's also the suggestion that you can hook computers up together. One computer can detect what's happening on the other computer, and if it's full-on real-time assistance, then you don't have to input anything. It'll just work. It'll scrape the screen for all the relevant information, the whole cards, the stack sizes, etc. So there's still a lot we don't really know about the Fedor Kruse situation. We're just basically going on what his housemates have said so far. it's clear he crossed the line to some degree, and that's problematic. But then on the other hand, I mean, this is the tip of the iceberg, really. We spoke briefly with Tom before we came on, and Tom made the point that, like, we've all known that this stuff has been going on for years. The term dream machine has been around for years. I think it was originally used jokingly by Joey Ingram 5 or 6 years ago. And so, we're not shocked by it, but I think a lot of people who maybe came into the game later are a bit shocked. A lot of people also don't sort of understand the solvers really that well, so they're not really aware of what's possible with the solvers. And I mean, the solver is just giving you a GTO response in any situation based on the assumptions that you put into it. But at a certain point, that could give you a significant edge over the field. But I mean, Pandora's box is open on that. You can't ban all the solvers now. People are going to use them. So there's always going to be this gray area between using a solver to learn and improve yourself, and the next stage up is referring to some sort of database or bank of stuff that you've run yourself, and then the final phase is just somebody else has done all this stuff for you, and a piece of software is retrieving the relevant information.
Yeah, I certainly don't envy the security teams these days. I'm guessing that in the game of cat and mouse, the mouse is certainly running away right now, and it's going to be hard to catch. Yeah, I mean, the methods that they've used are as clever as they could possibly be. That even stuff like mouse tracking is really clever, because that's you know what a human typically looks like when they're using their mouse. I played the first game I ever played for money online was actually backgammon, and backgammon was killed by the bots in the end. And you didn't have to be a genius to work out who the bots were, because they moved instantaneously in every situation, and it happened very quickly. It went from you didn't see them at all to suddenly half the accounts you were playing against were clearly bots. And I mean, that killed backgammon. Nobody plays backgammon for money online anymore. And the sites are going to have to get ahead of this. Otherwise, the same thing will happen in poker. Now, poker is not quite as susceptible as backgammon, because backgammon is a pure strategy game where the strategy is always the same in any given spot. Poker, you have the different formats. As we mentioned on the last show, tournaments are, because of the ICM aspect, are somewhat immune from the worst excesses of RTA. PKOs bring it even further, because now you have the additional equity element of the bounty to consider, which presumably the real-time assistant tools don't do as yet. But who knows down the line that they might get very good at approximating that too. Yeah, great point. Well, from one scandal to another, this is the scandal that just keeps on giving, actually. I did think at some point we probably finally put Postle to bed, but no, he's raised his head again. And this week we have an interesting one. So I mentioned Berkey earlier on. Well, Berkey and Phil Galfond have taken up the challenge to analyse all of Mike Postle's televised sessions at Stones Casino. I believe Justin Kuraitus will rue the day he went onto Twitter and sort of like lauded over the people who had lost the trial, how that meant that was case closed and he was innocent, and sort of taunted the victims even, I would say. It has spurred Galfond, Berkey, our pal KL Cleaton and others into action, and I think they're going to groupthink, get all the hands done, and they're going to look for very specific types of information. Darren, this is where I'm interested to come to you on, because Phil gave a list of all the types of stats he will look to find. I suppose the ones that he feel will be most revealing of jiggery pokery in this spot. He's going to look at river bluff success rates. He's going to look at river bluff success rates when you're calling, as well as the bets. Exactly. He's going to look at pre-flop 4-bet frequencies when there's no ace or kings about. He's going to look at pre-flop 5-bet frequencies when there's no aces and kings about. And there's a whole list of these things, which include then, once we get to the river, fold to river with the best hand, fold to river, bet without the best hand, fold to river, raise with the best hand, etc., etc. These are going to provide really interesting data points, I think, in all of this.
Yeah, I mean, I agree that, and I'm pretty sure with the evidence when they come out will be damning. But I still kind of don't see the point, because it's not going to convince a court of law. I mean, the data point which makes it most obvious that he's cheating was just his sheer win rate, which was just absolutely impossible. And then there were individual hands where, he made plays you couldn't justify on any other basis other than he knew exactly what cards his opponent had. That's already out there. I don't see how doing some sort of mass data analysis, which will show he cheats on all these stats too, is going to particularly help. I mean, everybody who understands data knows he cheated. They don't need this additional round. It feels like we're flogging a dead horse at this stage. And I mean, is Galvin going to go into court and talk about river bluff frequencies, and the court's going to go, all right, yeah, now we're convinced. Before, when he was winning at an unsustainable rate, we didn't, but now you've convinced us. No, that's not going to happen. I mean, he has gotten away with it. So what can we do?
Well, I suppose what you said there about the court of public opinion maybe being the other aspect to this, and from our point of view, he's already lost that battle. Anyone who can interpret data or even watch a handful of Joey's videos would have pretty much seen what they needed to see. However, Tom, things do play out in public, and I suppose one of the threats thrown out there by Kuraitus and then this follow-up by the documentary filmmaker is that they're going to make this amazing film about this poor man who was wronged, and it was so awful how he was vilified by a community of awful people, us poker players, who decided that we just didn't like him, I guess, and we didn't like how much money he was inexplicably winning on these streams. So we decided to take him to court, or well, so individuals did. And I suppose I felt like watching this was that Phil and Berkey and these lads were taking up sort of the mantle of, I guess, Veronica and co, when they sort of said, well, do you know what? If you bring out some bullshit documentary, that's going to be, I'm looking forward to seeing what they do, to be honest. We're going to be armed with the counter story in a very clean way. What do you think?
I hope you don't mind. I'm going to backtrack again, because I've got
That's
something
okay.
to say about the charts. None of us are condoning charts, right? The ambiguity comes from the sites themselves. Some sites say they're allowing charts over up to X amount of data, right? So the whole ambiguity comes from that. Now, a solver is effectively a collection of charts. If you took photos of every single result from a solver, you could have a faster result than a solver technically, right? So where is the line between allowing to use charts and effectively using a solver? We don't really know. It's probably at the 3 or 4 charts sort of. I don't even. It's hard to say, right? When online poker came about, we're trying to model it as close to live poker as we can. That's the ideal here, right? We all love live poker. We're trying to play poker online in the most legitimate form possible. Now, that would be to just say, okay, there is no tools allowed, no trackers, no shark scope, no Holden manager, no charts, right? None of that stuff while you're in the game. Now, can we police that? We can't police that. So it's just on the sites to give you a group of rules that allows there to be no form of gray area at all. That's where a lot of this problem comes in, because they're telling us, okay, you can use this much information, but any more than that will stop you. And then people think, well, what's to stop me just having this other computer next to my computer? And then it all just expands from there. I mean, I think that's enough about that. I mean, Postle, like you said, what we're flogging a dead horse. We all know he's cheating. We all know he's cheating. It's obvious. Now, you said if Galfon was in court, it would be pointless for him to make a point to try and explain river betting frequencies and shit. That is correct. But scientists go into court all the time and explain stuff that isn't necessarily very obvious to the human mind straight away. You know, like stuff on a DNA level or on a whatever, on a crime scene level, that to the natural observer, to the people in the jury, they can get a good idea of what's going on. Now, if Phil Galfond was in the court, maybe he could give the jury a better idea of why this guy was cheating. But then are those people going to really? A lot of people can't even understand EV full stop. You know, they in their day-to-day life, they can't understand expected value because it's just something that doesn't come up. You go about your life, good things happen, bad things happen. You don't think about on a week-to-week basis, how good is it going to, you know, EV isn't a thing. So is this a case we're ever going to win? Probably not. But could Phil Galfond put a good point across in court? I think so. I think he could do a good job of it. But we're talking about the poker world versus reality, kind of. And there's a lot of stuff that people don't really want to talk about because we just want to get on with it as well, don't we? We want to enjoy the game that we all love. We don't want the ship to just sink because of a few bad eggs. Lovely metaphor there.
Yeah, I think it's also true that at some level, the weakness of law has been revealed hugely in this. And this is something that happens a lot when, as you say, the poker world and the reality try to come together on something. Postle hasn't been told he's innocent. Postle's been told that there's no proper legal framework to judge his case on. That's essentially how he's managed to get out of this.
Scot-free.
So it isn't really that he's been declared innocent, as Kuraitus wanted to just, you know, stand out on the court steps and wave his hands. It's actually that, you know, the law has failed in this situation. And it brings me to the sort of notion of self-policing, which is something we do all the time in poker. We're constantly self-policing right now by making a podcast talking about this for 10 minutes that hopefully lots of people watch, and then that helps form their opinion and concretize what they probably already know anyway, but also maybe helps a little bit that way. Dara?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's the only thing we can do. There's one big problem here is the fundamental difference between the way poker players view the world and normal people do. We're very comfortable with a probabilistic view of the world, where we understand that everything is a matter of probability, and some probabilities are just so long that they're indistinguishable from fact. But that's not the way the average person works. The average person, when they want proof, they literally want somebody to come forward and say he was cheating, and here's a photograph I took to prove it. Now, that's all much more falsifiable and much more less reliable. And poker players understand that. I mean, even in courts where, you know, they use stuff like DNA, juries always find eyewitness reports much more compelling, and they'll go with that. As the problem with any sort of data evidence is that you're always saying, okay, so the chances of this happening naturally are 1 in 100 million. And as soon as the average person hears that, they go, oh, so there's a chance it actually happened naturally. They don't go like, okay, so this is consistent with somebody who's actually cheating. So I mean, you're technically right in that the way the court case was drawn out was, well, first of all, there was a question of jurisdiction, I think. And then secondly, there's a whole gray area over enforceability of gambling debts and so on. So the whole thing was a non-runner from the start, even if they could have proved he was cheating, but they never even got to that point. But I think had it gone to that point, they still would have had difficulty, because they would have had to use all of these analysis and say, okay, it's 100 million to 1, or it's a billion to 1, or whatever, and a judge would still go, yeah, but that means there's a 1 in a billion chance he's innocent. Given that, then the onus falls on poker players to self-police. I don't know. I haven't been following the story close enough to know if Postle is banned from playing live anywhere. I suspect he could show up at a lot of places and still play. Now, the fact that he hasn't, despite having this insane win rate, which he claims was completely clean, is pretty damning in itself. But I mean, I guess if he was cheating and the only reason he was winning was he was cheating, then it doesn't really matter whether he's banned or not, because he's not going to be able to show up and do the same thing again, presumably. But nevertheless, as as a message, there should be some sort of punishment. Now, there has been punishment in the sense of ostracization, and we're all still talking about it. We're all not going to watch this forthcoming documentary with an open mind. we know this is bullshit. We can smell it from here. But yeah, so I mean, the poker community does help police in that sense, and it's very much an industry of reputation.
There was someone mentioned, I can't remember where, but there was some sort of mention or talk of some sort of poker union. This is what we lack, some sort of body of people that is completely unbiased. The problem is that most of the people who are figureheads in our industry are tied in with some sort of company. And that creates, to me, that's creating a lot of problems. Like right now on Twitter, all the back and forths, everyone is tied in with some sort of company. So it's very hard to get an unbiased opinion about these things. And then it becomes like, well, how do we know that they're not just trying to, not sabotage another website, but throw shade on another website for their own benefit? And I'm not pointing any fingers at all. I'm just saying that Twitter is a storm for that sort of stuff in any industry. And in our industry,
I feel very seen here,
no...
Tom, I'm going to say. I feel very seen right now.
Yeah. Well,
yeah,
you know, I never really air it out on Twitter anymore because I don't really want to. I want to keep living my life and I want to keep playing poker. So, you know, it's awkward, isn't it? But it's awkward in these situations when there's nobody to turn to. We get to the end of this Postle situation. Where are we at? Well, there's no solution. The guy can walk into any casino, play in any game he wants. We can't really do anything as a community about it. Like that's one of the beauties of poker as well, though. Total freedom, anyone with money can walk in and play. So it's too many gray areas.
Yeah, I think there's.
Sorry, Dara, go on.
I think there's also the brazenness of the documentary. I mean, there's a law in America which prevents people from profiting from a crime. So you can't write a book about a crime you committed yourself and have it become a bestseller and make lots of money. But unfortunately, he hasn't been found guilty of any crime. So he is actually going to quite brazenly profit it. I don't think this is an attempt to rehabilitate his image in any way. I think this is just the final money grab.
Yeah. I don't think he's coming back, but you know, when there's any form of hacking in any form of industry, in any form of competitive industry, you know, mainly leaning in towards video games here, the way they test it is to get them to play in front of them. They watch them play live in front of them to see, does this guy check out or is this guy just, you know, clearly full of shit? And if we set Postle on a computer and got him to play 4 tables, how fast would like his game style not line up with live? You know, I think in the first like 500 hands, we'd be like, okay, this guy's a joker. Like, this guy's got no idea what's going on. Like, and even then, would we win the case in court? Probably not. But still, we can. There are ways to get evidence. It's just grey again. Keep saying it.
Yeah, his punishment should be he should be just forced to play the best players in the world at the table until all his money is gone. And then they redistribute it to the victims, of course. I'm going to go from the downright despicable to the sublime. We have a great story this week, probably one of the best stories we're going to have this year. Charlie Godwin, the dream spin-up. She jumped into a 109 and managed to move up all the way through the satellite tiers, eventually finding her way into the 100K buy-in super high roller WPT, which she then, and was incredible, survived an all-in on the direct bubble, which would have been tragic, with the ace king. So she got it in good, but she still had to spike that ace on the river to stay alive. And then went on to come third in the tournament and pick up 620K, an extraordinary result. Mike Adamo went on to beat Ike Haxton heads up, but her story was certainly the talk of the town. Well, what did you make of it, Tom? And I suppose more generally as well, how great is a story like this for poker?
Well, I know Charlie a little bit from the tables, super polite. don't really, acquaintances, I would say. Super happy for her. I mean, anyone in the UK community who isn't really a high stakes player who gets a chance like that in the first place to play the tournament already is obviously enormous. And then to go on and cash, the thing is about that whole experience, obviously she's a lot better off financially, but poker, in terms of poker, her game is going to level up loads as well after this, because she'll be way tougher. She'll be, the higher you play, the more high pressure situations you're in, the better you feel in the next time you're in a similar situation, right? So next time she's deep in a 5K, it's going to be a breeze to her compared to other tournaments, compared to the 100K she was in. And that tough experience is going to be really good for her long term. And just in general, it's what we all want to see. That's why poker got to where it is, because of dreamers, chucking in the lottery ticket and hoping for the one time, right? I think a lot of advertising is missing that now in poker. We don't really see that. We don't really see the dream advertised. We just see, I don't really see many poker advertisements.
Absolutely. Well, Dara, what did you make of it? Obviously, extraordinary scenes.
Yeah, it's a wonderful story, and it's exactly the type of thing people like to hear. I mean, I'm similar to Tom. I know Charlie on a sort of acquaintance level for years, going back to when she worked for Party Poker, whenever that was, 3 or 4 years ago, and she's been a constant fixture both online and live at events. I think a lot of people maybe have the wrong impression of this story, of this like this is like a lucky girl who got her one time, etc. But Charlie's actually been grinding online for several years. So I think for online grinders as well, it is an inspirational story of what can happen. I referred at the start to the way sort of live poker has invaded the online arena, and this is essentially what's happening now. You're getting all these big festivals are dominating everything, and it's great to see a story like Charlie, somebody who spun $100 up to 620 grand. But that's a real long shot. And for every Charlie, how many people are there that sunk a significant chunk of their roll trying to get into the tournament, maybe never even got into the tournament, or if they didn't cash. So there is a flip side to it as well, which is that it's increased all of our variances, and it's made it much more difficult to sort of navigate a steady living. The way the three of us in particular have sort of approached our career from the start. But in terms of selling the dream, this is a great story. And on an aside, it's really good to see the sort of resurgence of satellites in the last few years, because satellites are crucial to the recreational dream. They're not going to play a 100K, apart from the very richest businessmen. They're possibly not even going to pay a 1K satellite to 100K, but they might take 1 or 2 shots at $100 and try and get it in that way. And to see what's possible when that happens, that sort of reaffirms the whole dream. That is the original poker dream, doing the sort of spin up, and it's good to see that it can still happen too.
It sure is. Well, look, you did a beautiful segue for me there, Dara, so thank you for that. I appreciate it. One thing that does unite the three of us, as you said, is our sort of steadiness. We've both been in the game, I think maybe 13 years. Dara, I'm going to guess, Tom, you might only be a year behind us, but it's something similar. And the one thing people used to say to us years ago as well was our graphs are very, the classic bottom left to top right. They just look really nice. There's a lot of steady increase. And Tom, you're famous for that one. Dara and I have similarly shaped graphs, although I will admit that mine, if put next to yours, would be the same shape, but much, much smaller. But I do want to say that there is something worth talking to you specifically about, I think, on this one, Tom, because your approach to the game, similar to Dara and I, has been to ignore, to some degree, that sort of get-rich-quick mentality that does attract some people to poker, and to instead view it as a living, view it as something to build wealth gradually and accumulate incrementally and build year on year on year. And, it's done us all well. We're all still here 13 years later, which is great. But I just wanted to get your take on that, Tom, and your sort of overall poker journey and how smooth it's been.
Times have changed. Firstly, when
not anymore. These are the graphs from 3 years ago.
Yeah.
Well, I'm leaning into the sit and goes. When 12 years ago, we got to play hundreds of sit and goes a day if we wanted to. We literally could build a steady income in a much more. It seemed much more feasible back then to make X amount per day. Now it's all MTTs, everything is MTTs. And yeah, cash games still exist, but there aren't that many people getting into poker to grind cash games for a living. So back in 2008, 2009, whatever, $12 180 mans were not enormous, but there was maybe like 40 to 50 a day, $12 180 mans. And if you were making $3 a game, which is on the lower side, I would say, still good. But if you made $3 a game over $50 games a day, $150 a day every day, and the variance was actually kind of reasonably low on a week-to-week basis, you actually had a wage. It wasn't an MTT, swingy up and down. Is this going to be a good month? Is this going to be a bad month? You had a good idea of how much you made that month because you played X amount of games. And I think you two are the same. You find what you can beat, you work out how much you beat it for, and then you play as much as you physically can without destroying your health to build your bankroll. You want to keep going until you get to a point where the swings aren't going to affect you at all. That was my day one mindset, just to keep grinding these 180s till I had enough money that the swings of these 180s and possibly some MTTs aren't going to affect me. And then from there, the world's your oyster. Once you've got that bankroll that is 100% stable for the stakes you're going to play, then you can start playing what you feel like. And over time, we've had to adapt, all of us. We've had to change our focus and which site do we make money on, which games do we make money on, which time zone do we play, which type of tournaments do we play, how long do we play, or which day of the week. There's so many different factors that we've had to change to over time. But mostly, just like I said, picking what you can beat and just going in. We had a lot better access to that back in the day because we could play that every day. And now it's like, well, if you've got a good schedule of daily MTTs you want to play, well, your Monday might look nothing like your Saturday. Your Monday might only make you half the money that you make on a Saturday, for example. So it's not like you have that access every day like you used to. It's changed, but it's all about that steadiness and just not losing control, right? I mean, have any one of us played a tournament for more than 10% of our bankroll ever?
Not even 5.
It's just ridiculous.
What you were saying there about the $11 180 mans, I had an almost identical experience with the $26 45 mans. And I remember after a reasonable sample size, being able to shark scope what my ROI is, how much I could expect per game, how many would run each given day. I worked all that stuff out very similarly, and then sort of thought, okay, this is safe. This is a wage. And it was so safe, in fact, that because I didn't do much outside of that, I sprinkled in a few MTTs on a Sunday and different things. But because I basically decided that's what I was grinding, I knew I would pretty much have a sort of variance-free existence. And that translated to 60 of my first 61 months playing poker were profitable. I had one unprofitable month in 5 years, which was extraordinary. And that pretty much is when I met Dara. I met Dara around that time and discovered a kindred spirit as somebody who similarly, maybe not the 45 mans quite as much, although I know you played them too, Dara, but very much sit and goes, heads up sit and goes, and of course, satellites, which became your speciality.
Yeah, I wasn't quite as scientific as you do guys in terms of breaking down my exact edge, but I did move around, and I guess I was always naturally drawn to lower variance stuff. So I started after a brief period of limit cash. I started in the sit and goes and did them for a while. Then moved into heads up sit and goes for a while, and then moved into tournaments. But the move into tournaments was sort of the golden era of satellites, where it was possible to absolutely smash them up by such a large margin that you couldn't really have a downswing. It was pretty much impossible to have a major downswing of any kind. Now, the last few years have sort of increased the variance on every level. Like, there's a number of things which factor into variance. One is your edge, obviously, and when your edge is massive, you'll have variance in the sense of you'll have very good months and good months, but you won't have actual downswings. And that's kind of that's where we were at the start of the last decade with the satellites. So edge is one thing, and another thing is field size. And on both of those fronts, the tide has moved against us. The fields are getting bigger in the tournaments where we have the biggest edge now. There's very little small field stuff around where you have a significant enough edge, or you can play enough of them that you can sort of grind out a living. So you are sort of forced into the higher variance of the bigger fields. And then our edge has all slipped for a number of reasons. Recreationals have gotten better. The weaker ones get weeded out pretty quick, and then the structures are a lot different now. There are much more turbo structures around, which also reduces our edge. So because of that, we have sort of been forced to embrace variance, and I'm sure all of our graphs have reflected that. I haven't really looked at my graph. Another thing which has happened, and I've been resistant to this, but more and more of the action has moved away from the big sites. Yeah. And you are forced onto like small sites that operate on Bitcoin or sites that operate in the sort of unregulated area, and that's introducing another element of risk, which is that obviously we could wake up one day and the site could be gone. But unfortunately, a lot of the recreational money has moved towards that. Also, the smaller fields, which is again something we all look back on nostalgically when we grind our 45 mans or our 180 mans. So yeah, I mean, I'm now realizing that I do have to sort of look at all these other sites now and sort of reorient my schedule. I haven't gone as far as going onto the apps yet, but who knows down the line? Maybe in 5 years' time we'll all just be playing on apps.
Well, I doubt it with MTTs. Like maybe more cash games, but I don't think MTTs are going to go onto the apps anytime soon. I know there's like Poker Pros or whatever, but I don't think that's going to be. I mean, the things with MTTs, we're trying to get a big fish pool into a medium-sized buy-in to create a giant prize pool, right? And the apps, it's just not. We're not going to be able to create a big enough pool. One thing you said about just our edge going down. People forget that like ICM is a big edge. A lot of our profit comes from applying ICM in late game situations. And one of the reasons we were able to make such steady profit back in the days as well from satellites and from sit and goes was because we got to play ICM so much more often. Nowadays, it's very, very little ICM in MTTs. There's bubble play and then there's 18 left sort of thing.
Yeah. And
that doesn't even come about every day. Whereas in 2014, that was every single day we were applying our ICM edge 20, 30, 40 times a day. And not only did we get to apply it, we got to study it a lot more than other people with, sit and go wizard, whatever with the tools back in the day. So stuff that was like less accessible to people, still out there, but needed more learning back then. So we were getting better faster than everyone else, as well as being able to play ICM situations more often. So our graphs being smoother, straighter, better looking is all of that is a big part of it.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree completely. It's a very good point. We probably owe most of our careers and our profitability to just ICM. Which is sad. I mean, there. I'm sure we'd all admit there are large areas of our game where like we don't really know what to do, but they don't come up very often. ICM back in the day, particularly, like you were hitting 3 or 4 final tables every day, and playing the final table better than everybody else, that made such a massive difference.
If the three of us were sat in the Vic at a 10.25 cash game, pounds, not pence, pounds, Do you think people would be rolling in, or do you think people would be scared to play? They'd be
like,
rolling in
because
we're not deep stack. Yeah, exactly.
No.
We're self-professed. We're not good 200 big blind players. We're experts at the small razor ICM 5 big blind final table sort of stuff. We're making guaranteed profit in all those situations. We're not looking for these murky waters of 100 big blind decisions where it's 60-40, 60-40, 75% part and 40% part. We want to know, like, I'm all in on these 3 guys. Fuck them. They can't do nothing. Like that's me making a 0.7% edge right there.
Well, Darren and I used to joke about how we were probably, and I'm sure we'd have put you in this group as well, we were probably among the best, if not the best, sub 3 big blind players in the world.
It's funny you say that, because like the more ICMizer spots I run under 5 bigs, the worse I feel my game is. And I think like population is absolutely terrible under 5 big blinds.
Yeah.
Myself, like I think my like 2.5 big and under game really needs work. I know that sounds ridiculous, but like you need to get it in so often with these stacks, and I'm just folding too much still. And I keep plugging them in, and I'm still folding too much. And it's that weird human disconnect of my hand's not good enough, rather than pot size versus equity.
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard thing. Yeah, I remember David used to jokingly introduce us as the best 3 big blind players in the world. It also reminds me, the first time I went to Vegas, my brother was actually with me, and I've been playing about just over a year at this stage. And
it's a long time
one of the things which my brother remarked on was that like some of the best players would come up and they'd ask me about spots, like Channing ran a spot by me, and a lot of the top guys did, but so he was saying like it's incredible, you've only been playing a year and people are already asking about hands. And I said, yeah, but like listen to the hand every time. There's never more than 20 big blinds involved. Because back then, the typical out player didn't really know what to do with 20 big blinds, and it was guys like us who played online, who played all the sit and goes. We kind of had our ranges down, and that was a huge part of our edge. And people would come to us for a spot where like, okay, so I have ace queen under the gun, now what do I do?
I think the 3 of us, we need clear answers. When we study, we like studying stuff where we get answers that are very clear. Like back in the day, we could, like I used to love sit and go wizard because I just get the answers and go from there. And now with ICMizer, you can get so good under like 20 big blinds. Doesn't mean you're going to know your opening ranges necessarily. But you can learn so much with ICMizer if you just sat down for a week and just drilled through spots, drilled through the sit and go coach quiz. There's so much learning data. And in that scenario you're talking about, people came to you, there was no tool to tell them to plug it in, to say, and now that's just day to day.
Yeah. Put it in HRC.
That's like, if you don't know that, then just look in the mirror, mate. Like, because it's a lot of it is just ego war still. It's like, well, I want to be a tough player. I want to be hard to play against. I want to be sick, and I want to be aggro, and I want to punish people. I want to make money. That's what I want to do. I just want to make money. I don't care. Like, I want to make the best decision I can make. And to be honest, only in the past like 2 years have I really started studying. And it's times have changed, haven't they? It's all it all used to just be like, it's all right, you can do that as long as you only pull off the Jack 2 off 4-bet once at a blue moon. It's okay. These weird live replays people used to make all the time, and now a lot of stuff is just totally out of bounds, unacceptable. I just want to go back to exploiting people constantly, not really worry about overall strategy. You live a much freer life, don't you? Much more stress-free.
He says, sitting on his expensive brown leather couch.
This was like $8 at a time, mate. It wasn't like here's your lump sum, Jabra. Well done. Like
Oh, I do recall a few lump sums in there, but let's move on.
No, I've had a few lump sums, but you know what I mean. We've been breaking down. Like all three of us, we grinded to get here. And I was thinking about this pre-podcast. Like, if you asked me the question of like about bankroll management, when I started, I said to myself, I'm gonna make it. I'm not gonna slack. I'm gonna find a way to make X amount of dollars, and I'm gonna do it. I know poker, there is a way for me to do that. I've just got to work hard. And that's still a thing. You've just got to find something you could beat and then keep playing it. Simple as that. Not like reach to try and, I don't know, reach for excitement, you know? Like, I think all three of us, we found something we liked. We saw an opportunity and we forced it. There wasn't a question about it. You just keep going until you're there, you know?
Yeah, not that any of our careers have lacked high points from time to time. You both of you guys have certainly had loads of high points, but I suppose as an overall approach, there was a sacrifice of glamour or of the highlight for basically reducing your risk of ruin to almost zero. Yeah,
I never really chased the glamour either. I was more of a like, oh, if I don't do this, it's all gonna go to shit. Like, if I don't make myself an insurance plan effectively for my whole life, then I'm just gonna fall to pieces if I don't come up with something, because I'm not fit for human society, workplace, whatever you want to call it. I had to make it work, you know.
Great stuff. Well, listen, we were talking about edge and we're talking about variance there, and I suppose I want to finish with one subject which has sort of become a bit more topical in the last few months again, is that of overlay. We had the summer of overlay. There was poker stars were overlaying on all their big field, big buy-in stuff. So a lot of overlay gifts going to some of the high stakes guys there. I know GG are sweating, hitting their guarantee that's coming up this week, so they're probably looking at some overlay potential there. Party Poker, I know, overlaid quite a bit on the WPT series, but probably a lot of that went into the satellites. So satellite grinders managed to scoop up a bit of value there, which was nice to see. Unibet have actually swallowed quite a bit of overlay already in the first week of their UOS. And what I like about that is that overlay is going to people all the way from the micros to mid stakes. We don't really have a high stakes tier. So, you know, there's a lot of, you know, grinders, there's a lot of recreational players getting a little bit back, which I don't think is a bad thing at all. However, and this has become, I'm going to get myself in trouble here with the boss, but in Unibet, there is this tendency with our guys to not really like the idea of advertising ourselves off the back of overlay. And me just even presenting this segment now is almost risking their wrath, which is that, like, in my mind, overlay is brilliant because you set an ambitious guarantee. If you hit it, fantastic. If you miss it, you mark it off the back of that cleavage and you make it a positive for your customer. And I kind of see that as win-win in a lot of ways. Obviously not if you were to get absolutely killed, but, you know, small overlays here and there are a good thing. Am I wrong?
Are you wrong? I think it's fine for sites to advertise, and when the tournament started, they're giving the players an opportunity for free money. If they want to put a load of free tickets on Twitter, that's up to them. However, they've got to stick to the guarantee. That's it. That's the only restriction here. They put out a guarantee, they've got to stick to it. And they could do, to me, I think you're right. They should play on that. Not like, oh, this might overlay, but tweet about it when it's overlaying. You know, there's nothing wrong with that. You're advertising your site. You're perfectly within the realm of doing that's. I don't see a problem with that at all. I mean, I have a problem with everything that's gone on in the last 6 months in terms of guarantees. I mean, we're about to hit like record new lows, I think, over the next few weeks. Already we're looking at a dead space. Other than ACR, the guarantees have remained the same. They haven't changed at all, interestingly. Stars, Party, GG, all have gone down significantly since Monday. Monday was the last day of the series of the last 11, 17 weeks or whatever the hell, however long it's honestly, it's been never ending. And I've had a lot of time of just like sitting on the couch when W Coop or something's going on and just feeling like, I can't be bothered with this shit. When does it ever stop? You know, like what are my values here? Like I do enjoy it, but if it's on every day, how do I treat it? It's different when it's Sunday. You can clearly draw a line and say, okay, I'm always going to play Sunday. If I don't feel like playing the rest of the week right now, fair enough. But then they make every day Sunday. And now you're like, so what days do I take off and how do I value my free time now?
Well, the analogy I like is, did you ever watch wrestling? As a young boy, I did watch the WWF, WWE stuff. And it was like they always had on the weekly shows the crappiest matches ever. But then obviously you had Royal Rumble or WrestleMania, and it was great because it was the thing that everything was building towards. And now it just feels like it's fucking WrestleMania every day. And if it's always special, it's never special.
Yeah.
Well, did you notice how W Coop that was the weakest W Coop of all time? No question. Not even like, not only was there not they took Fridays off. Fridays weren't W Coop. When has that ever been a thing? They're like, okay, we're gonna have W Coop, but we're gonna have one day a week off where they all the events say W Coop side event. They don't say W Coop. They're not big guarantees. It shows that they've devalued their own brand already. In this year, like all the companies have devalued their flagship series. Right now, Party are doing a good job by staying extremely low key with their schedule. It has become quite quiet on Party, but it means when Millions kicks back off again, Party's going to be booming. There's going to be a very clear distinction of exciting to not exciting, a midweek grind to the weekend grind, or whatever you want to say. So Party's going to pick, when Millions comes back about, Party's going to ramp up again. And that's the way it should be. It should be dips and troughs accordingly. People saving their money to play the big series, or, regs chilling in the troughs and playing in the peaks, right? So we've seen half a year of series, and now we've kind of, for example, how different was Stadium Series to W Coop?
Indeed.
Not
Dara?
really.
Sorry.
Not different.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting actually when you go on to Party at the moment. There's so few games. I mean, all of us play, all of the major sites. That's how we get our schedules together. But Party are definitely taking a backseat. The problem is though that other sites won't. Then I mean, 888 have a series running at the moment, albeit the world's most withered series ever. Literally, all they've done, as far as I can see, is they've added 20% to the guarantee of all of their daily games. So the Monsoon has gone from 10k to 12k, and the 5k games have gone to 6k, and they're calling it a series now. It's like you just made your guarantees.
Add up all the guarantees into one big.
Yeah,
that's been happening for the last 2 years. I feel like just slight deceptions. Like, I actually really like this 888 series. It's extremely soft. It's not out of reach guarantees, and it's a site that hasn't really had much going on.
Yeah.
Now picking up in a time where everyone else is slowing down. I think they've actually played it quite smart in that regard, even though the site itself is, not up to par, let's say. I still enjoy playing on there actually, but I'm still on the old software. And if it ever moves me onto the new software, I'm done. I'm done with it. Like, seriously, I can't. The new software is like, anyway.
Well, Dara, before we kind of wrap up here, I am keen to get your notion on overlay, for no other reason than just I can maybe share the blame for bringing this subject up with my fellow.
Yeah, you're on your own here, Jay, but I'm going to toe the party line and say that I think it's understandable. I mean, we love overlay, but we're professional players, and yes, I mean, recreational players like it too, but really recreational players are more drawn by big guarantees and big prize pools, etc. They don't focus as much on stuff like rake and overlay as we do. It makes sense from, I think, Unibet's point of view to take the sort of long-term view and say, look, we're trying to sell our platform as a safe place to play. we're a very friendly place to play, where we do everything. We ban all the third-party software. We protect our player pool that way. And it can almost be counterproductive, I guess, to focus too much on the overlay, because then you're just saying, well, just come and play because we're giving you a little bit of extra money. And maybe that will attract more regs onto the platform, but maybe that's not what they want. I mean, Unibet have a similar holistic approach to, they don't talk at all about their loyalty or rakeback scheme. They don't want that to be the selling point of the platform. They want people to come on because of these other factors. In the short term, maybe they'll change their mind if these overlays continue coming. But it's actually very refreshing for a site to just sort of take this view of say, like, okay, well, we'll take the overlay. We're taking the long-term view. We're trying to build a healthy ecosystem, not a predatory one, which is based on people diving in when there's overlay or some other advantageous factor. Again, circling back to I guess the main theme of this is just how much life has bled into online over this pandemic period, where now we just seem to have endless series. Everything is running somewhere, and GG had no sooner had they finished the WSFP than they started their own series. Even if individual sites sort of take periods off, like Party are essentially doing at the moment, to let their player pool recover, there will be other sites running series. I feel like we're just going to have a series running somewhere, everywhere now until the end of the pandemic.
I don't know. I think we're gonna dip out pretty hard here. There might be some small stuff going on, but I think we've got at least 4 to 6 weeks of very, very quiet online streets.
Sorry, Tom. I'm just hearing that bus coming that Dara just threw me under. I think it's just on the way now. Yeah, here it comes.
Did the 250 make the guarantee yesterday on Uni? There was a 250.
Yes, we did. No, we hit our guarantee yesterday, which was good to see. And I think we'll hit our guarantee on the big one, the Unibet Open, which is coming up in about 10 days' time.
Yeah, that's what I was going to bring up. The 1K I'm going to play. That's. I mean, honestly, that's probably going to be the best 1K
ever.
I mean, for the foreseeable future, it's the best 1K online for sure. If you haven't got a Unibet account and you're a mid-stakes player, just there's good satellites as well, right? Like I always play in the 250 feeder to the 1K. I haven't been able to play it every week because I don't want to get overloaded with Unibet tickets, but it's definitely worth looking at.
Yeah, you mentioned satellites, and I hesitate to do this, but I'm not obviously going to say any names. But the bubble of the Unibet Open satellite last night on Unibet had the most bizarre hand I think I've ever seen in a satellite. You're going to enjoy this now. Okay, so there are 9 people left, and there are 8 seats worth 1,100 each.
I mean, already that sounds incredible. 8 1K seats.
Yeah.
In a Unibet satellite. That sounds like.
And the shortest stack has 13 big blinds, and I'm second shortest with 17. And then there's another.
Classic.
There's a bunch of players between 18 and 25 big blinds, and nobody is actually super locked up. So it's quite interesting from a theoretical point of view. But anyway, literally first hand of final table, under the gun, who's the short stack folds. I'm next to act, and I've ace 10 suited now. I'm supposed to just shove here because everybody behind is supposed to fold kings, but I don't trust anybody to do that. Yeah. So I'm like, okay, I know I'm supposed to shove, but I'm not going to shove. I'll just raise, and I think it'll get through enough. And sometimes I can flop gin if somebody defends. So I raise. The guy next to me who has 18 big blinds, he flats. Yeah, and it gets round to the button. And the button who has 19 big blinds shoves. Now, I don't hate his move because if he knows who I am, he knows I'm probably folding 100% of the time. Because if I had aces, I think I probably do just shove there. But so he shoves, I fold, and the other guy literally snaps. And I think, oh, okay, he's obviously been trapping there with aces. The 2 hands go over. The button has king 4 suited. The other guy has queen 5 offsuit.
And was there a cash
this is on an €1,100 bubble.
Was there a cash prize for ninth?
Yeah, we had 200 locked up. Effectively, it's a 900 bubble.
Because, you know, how many of these guys are in for €1?
Well, the satellite.
It's crazy how you see people do that.
Yeah, it's true. I'd actually satellited into the satellite from a 50, but the satellite I was playing was a 250. Is that right, Dave? You know the schedule better than I do.
Yeah, that sounds bang on. I'm going to have to cut you off here because I'm very suspicious that Tom, with all his lovely comments about Unibet and plugging Unibet, is after my job right now. The two of you are getting on way too nicely there with your back and forth, and I don't want to be out of the job.
I think Tom would make a wonderful ambassador. He has such he's so widely respected in the game and always so reasoned, but at the same time very honest in his opinions.
No, he is absolutely that. And Tom, I have to say, you know, there's a reason you're one of the most prolific people on our show. And I hope every year, as long as we produce any kind of content, you will come back and have a chat with us, because it's always such a phenomenal pleasure to spend an hour in your company.
Yeah, okay, I'll keep coming back, but I'm not repping no companies. I mean, I'm not trying to. I'm trying to live my life here. I'm not trying to like dodge bullets from all these media. You know, I'm just trying to do me. I don't want to have someone's beak poking over my shoulder. Like, what are you doing? What did you just say, Lappin? What did you just say?
I don't know, Tom. You shield the Unibet Open a couple more times. You might get the matching other sofa, the other little couch love seat beside the brown leather sofa. So I don't know.
Maybe you can like throw me a phone case or something, or like a UK IPT bag like back in the day. Yeah.
Tom, Jabracada Hall. Great to talk to you, my friend. It was such a pleasure. Dara, thank you as always.
Thank you.
We're out of here.
All right. Peace.